speaking of things going wrong for Trump, Donald Trump's lead is gone. It's gone in 7 key swing states, either losing to Kamala Harris or has lost a lead he had, and we are now within the margin of error. Let's talk about it. The Hill reports Harris pulls even with Trump among swing state voters. My, oh my, how quickly these elections can turn. Vice President Harris, this is per The Hill, has erased former President Trump's lead in 7 key battleground states, roughly a week after becoming the likely Democratic nominee. A Bloomberg News Morning Consult poll showed Harris and Trump in a tight race in all battleground states, with 48% backing Harris and 47% saying that they support Trump. Now, on average, we are talking about that 1.7 percentage point lead for Trump. We spelled that number out yesterday, and it remains that way. But the breakdown is very, very interesting, and this is where we have seen the shift. Tuesday's poll shows Harris opening an 11-point lead on Trump in Michigan. That's huge because that was like 20,000 vote margin or something like that in 2020. A 2-point lead in Nevada, a 2-point lead in Arizona, a 2-point lead in Wisconsin. Now, meanwhile, in these polls, Trump leads by 4 in Pennsylvania, 2 in North Carolina. We're not even counting on North Carolina. Pennsylvania would be nice, but it's not actually completely necessary. And the candidates are tied in Georgia at 47%. This is not a good sign for Donald Trump, and it is definitely a better feeling now compared to the start of July. I still think we need an additional full week to let all of the polling settle and get better and more representative data. But I also want to anecdotally show you some of the latest polls on Real Clear Politics just as snapshots. In a general election poll that just came out this morning, it is Kamala Harris +2 over Trump. This includes Robert F. Kennedy Jr. I am thrilled to see that Kennedy is down to just 3. You may recall that at one point in some polls, RFK Jr. was polling as high as 16 or even 18, which could be a total disaster for the Democratic nominee. At this point in time, whoever it is that RFK takes from, it's increasingly irrelevant as his national polling is down to 3. And I would bet in the states that will be close, it will be even lower than that. Jill Stein and Cornel West, fortunately, polling 0. Now, why do I say fortunately? For 2 reasons. I don't think they're good candidates, and any support that Stein and West have disproportionately would come from those otherwise likely to vote for Kamala Harris. They could ruin this entire thing and put Trump back in power. That's a great poll for Kamala. Couple other anecdotes. New Hampshire, Kamala +4, and New Hampshire in a multi-way race, Kamala +7. That's great to see. I mentioned already the Bloomberg poll in Arizona, where it's Harris +2. Tied in Georgia, Harris +11 in Michigan, Harris +11 in Nevada, Trump still leading in North Carolina and Pennsylvania. We also have a whole bunch of other polling that is more of a mixed bag, but as we go back further and further, we do start to get to polling that does not fully account for this change in who is at the top of the Democratic ticket. And then finally, if you look at a different poll, The Hill reports Harris takes a 4-point lead in Pennsylvania. This is just a reminder that just because Trump is leading Pennsylvania in the Bloomberg poll doesn't mean that he has the lead in every poll. So a couple different things I think are important to think about. As we approach the 2024 election here in November, there are cracks in the Republican Party. When they are all of a sudden not running against an incredibly weak and unpopular candidate in Joe Biden, immediately the numbers start to crater. J.D. Vance, and we'll talk about this with Tim Miller upcoming, J.D. Vance is making boneheaded comment after comment, alienating growing numbers of critical voter demographics. There are Reagan Republicans saying, we're not going to support Trump. This is just absolutely ridiculous. The populists and the authoritarians and the evangelicals, they are going to stick with Trump until the very last moment. But the infighting, worst case scenario, it doesn't do anything. Best case, the infighting actually makes a bunch of them stay home, which I would completely welcome. And if Donald Trump does lose, it will then be a situation where the more standard swaths of the Republican Party, the capitalists, the pro-business libertarians, the military industrialists, they will likely, I believe, say it's over with this MAGA stuff. That's it. And maybe this will be the inflection point that we've suspected that it might be. Now, if you look historically, there is this pendulum that swings in the United States between left and right phases. The difference, or what we might be able to navigate here, is some kind of guardrail that was totally overpassed in 2016 when Trump became president, and to some degree, even since he was no longer president, just by the rhetoric and what he's gotten away with. What we might be able to do by defeating Trump in November, if we are able to do it, is not change that the pendulum does swing, but move the guardrails, or the Overton window, we might call it, so that when the pendulum does swing back to the right, it's not lunatic MAGA Trumpism. It's something comparatively more benign. Not something I would vote for, but still something more benign. Romney-type conservatism. The late John McCain-type conservatism. Not stuff that I go, I love it, but stuff that doesn't make me say, is the next election at risk? Are the Democratic guardrails at risk? So this is early polling still. It's going in the right direction. It depends on us voting. MAGA World sees it. They are panicking, and we'll talk about that after the break. Right now, we are seeing candidates do whatever it takes to win your vote, and how the media chooses to cover certain stories, if at all, can completely shape your perspective of those candidates. But our sponsor, Ground News, is an awesome resource at a time like this. With their Vantage plan, I get access to what's called their blind spot feed that shows me stories that can be easily missed. For instance, I'm looking here at Ground News' summary about Trump distancing himself from Project 2025 amid its rising controversy, something we've been talking about. Ground News provides a great summary of the situation based on over 100 articles that Ground News found reporting on it. And Ground News shows me that almost no conservative news outlets are covering the story. Not a surprise. Ground News shows us that the right-wing outlets only report on how Trump is denying involvement with the project, while the center and left outlets are actually giving context on Trump's connections to the movement of Project 2025. Every story comes with this visual breakdown of the political biases and ownership of the reporting news outlets, which is really important to know as well. Go to ground.news/Pacman or scan my QR code for 40% off the same unlimited access Vantage plan that I use.